Well, welcome to the 700 Club. Israel has responded to Iran's attack with a strike of its own, hitting an airbase deep in Iranian territory. The assault showed Israel's ability to attack Iran whenever it wants.
Some believe the strike was designed to respond to Iran's aggression without sparking a wider regional war. Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem.
The Iranian Tasnim news agency reported the assault took place in the southeastern part of the city near its nuclear energy mountain. Isfahan is the site of one of Iran's major nuclear sites, enriching uranium for Iran's nuclear program. According to the Jerusalem Post, the attack in Isfahan was carried out with long-range missiles launched from aircraft, not drones or land-air missiles. An Iranian official told Reuters there is no plan for an immediate response. It is not clear who is behind the attack. An Iranian TV anchor downplayed the attack and quoted a military official in Isfahan.
He did confirm that there were some loud sounds that were heard in the east of the city of Isfahan, and this was related to the air defense system, as we told you and our viewers before, triggered by the presence of 3 small drones that were present in that area.
On local television, other reporters near the area showed how quiet and normal Isfahan looks. Middle East expert Avi Milliman told CBN News Iran seems to be minimizing the story on purpose. Yonah Bob, Jerusalem Post military correspondent and author of the book Target Tehran, told CBN News the strike sends a clear message.
The message behind the strike from Israel was, Iran, you cannot do what you did last weekend. You attacked Israel directly. You attacked with 350 aerial threats, 170 drones, 120 ballistic missiles, 30 cruise missiles. That cannot happen again. If it does, you will suffer, and you will suffer large.
Bob also says the attack was calibrated to avoid a regional war and represents a crossroads to Israel and Iran.
This is a unique moment. There was a shadow war between Israel and Iran that we talk about in our book, Target Tehran, for a long time. The question now is, will we go back to that shadow war, or has the paradigm been crushed? And even though Israel isn't officially taking credit for what happened today, will there be additional direct exchanges between Iran and Israel? We will only know that going forward.
The attack in Isfahan took place on the 85th birthday of Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Meanwhile, some analysts are saying that Israel's response was measured, only enough to give an answer to the Iranian attack. That's because it's preparing to enter the last Hamas stronghold in the city of Rafah in Gaza to complete the goal of finishing off Hamas and its leadership and getting the hostages back. IDF troops are still operating in the central Gaza Strip, eliminating terrorists and striking military compounds, observation posts and rocket launchers and launching points. They've also destroyed 17 tunnel shafts. And another major development involving Israel as the U.S. vetoed a UN Security Council resolution Thursday, giving the Palestinians full membership at the United Nations, a step toward a Palestinian state. But the Biden administration says a Palestinian state should only be brought about by direct talks with Israel. Regardless of the developments at the UN in Gaza, the world's focus is on the tensions between Israel and Iran and what comes next. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Well, joining us now is Jonathan Conri, a former spokesman for the IDF and a senior fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. And Jonathan, thank you again for being with us. Let's get to it in terms of what was the purpose of this strike? Was this to let Iran know that Israel can strike them at any time?
Yes, good morning, and thank you for having me again. A pleasure. I think that what Israel is trying to do is to de-escalate a quite tense situation where Iran deviated from the rules of the game so far by striking Israel directly. Iran deviated from that, and then Israel now responded. But Israel responded in such a way that allows Iran an out, and Israel isn't taking a responsibility for the attack, and Israel isn't gloating about the success of the attack, but really allowing Iran to save face and to tell the Iranian public stories about mysterious explosions that were heard. But what really Israel wants to deliver is a message that Iranian defenses are penetrable, that Iran is exposed to Israeli precise and accurate strikes, and that Isfahan, where there are nuclear sites and facilities, is a target that is accessible for Israel. Now, Israel struck with only a fraction of the amount of missiles that Iran fired at Israel because Israel is more professional and precise, and Israel could have struck 10 different sites, but chose one and a few others just to send a message of capability. Last thing is about air defenses, and I think it's very important for the US and for Western forces dealing with or fighting against Russian air defenses. Reportedly, there's also been strikes on the S-300 system, which I think is very important. This is still unconfirmed, so I'm careful when saying it. But if that is true, then that has strategic implications for the region, for the US, and for the world.
Well, last night, when the news broke, and in my timeline, it was about 10 p.m., I literally thought, oh no, we're now in a regional war. This is going to be incredible. The Iranian foreign minister already said if Israel attacks, we're going to respond. Do you think this limited response, and then what Iran is clearly doing in their own media saying this didn't come from Israel, have we seen the end of this direct cycle of attacks between the two countries?
I think we could carefully assess that to be true. And yes, that maybe this current round, which started in Damascus, went on to Israel. The Nevatim base in southern Israel was the main target, and now Isfahan. Maybe this round of blows is being packed and put to rest. But we have crossed Rubicons. Iran and Israel have both crossed Rubicons that they haven't crossed before. So we are in new territory where the rules of engagement will change. I think what Israel did was, in response to US requests and European requests of not striking back, Israel said to everybody, and we've been saying that consistently for a week, Israel is going to retaliate. There's no scenario that Israel doesn't retaliate. But I think that what Israel did here was to prefer the strategic objectives of going into Rafah, finishing the fighting in Gaza and defeating Hamas and getting our hostages back, and then availing ourselves also to Hezbollah instead of going into a bigger and more dangerous and violent conflict with the Iranians.
Well, let's talk about the strategic piece on this. It looks like Iran's attack on Israel is now forcing it to be isolated from the rest of the Middle East. And it looks like Israel's ties are now strengthened with Jordan, strengthened with Saudi Arabia. Is that your view?
Yeah, what I think is quite amazing is that, many European countries and the US, they told Israel, don't retaliate, and we'll do sanctions on Iran instead. And there's been some pretty watered down sanctions being offered against Iranian officials and entities. Nothing really that will matter for the Iranians. But the regional neighbors, I think that they are looking at what's happening in the region, and they see Israel striking Iran precisely and professionally without collateral damage, without civilians getting killed or anything of that mind. But they see that, and I think that what they read is strength, poise, and strategic capabilities, exactly what they need from a future ally. And I think that is absolutely crucial for our neighbors to see that Israel carries weight, carries importance, and when we are forced to do so, when push comes to shove, we retaliate, and we do so professionally and successfully. That is, of course, the value that Israel brings to the table when we negotiate with the Saudis and others on normalization and expanding the excellent Abraham Accords. That is the value that the Saudis need. They also want US value, of course, arms and reinsurances. But in terms of teaming up with Israel, why would the Saudis or the Jordanians or anybody else team up with a country that is weak and doesn't defend itself? Israel proved that it's exactly the opposite, and that is very, very important for future prosperity and stability, not for war.
Another, I would assume, unintended impact of Iran's attack on Israel is it absolutely diverted attention from Hamas and from finishing the job, if you will, and going into Rafah and saying Hamas can no longer be in power in Gaza. Do you think Israel now has permission? There's a report that the Biden administration tried to have some kind of bargain that will support you in Rafah if you limit your attack on Iran. Is that report true? And is Israel now essentially emboldened that they're not going to have a public relations disaster if they go ahead with the assault?
I think there's more than a grain of truth to that report, and there are quite a lot of reports, and beyond that also in Israel, of a planned attack on Hamas in Rafah after Passover. Passover night is Monday, when Jews around the world and, of course, in Israel will celebrate what is arguably the most important and perhaps central piece of Jewish identity. And Israelis will be celebrating that. And I think that the IDF will be gearing up towards attacking the remaining Hamas battalions in Gaza, taking out the tunnels, and hopefully bringing hostages back. I hope that this time Israel will have a good and well-coordinated plan, coordinated in advance with the Americans, to make sure that humanitarian aid is provided well and seamlessly, so that Israel can go ahead and focus on the bad guys and get the job done and finish Hamas.
Well, thank you for the insight, and we join with you in celebrating Passover, and we'll encourage all our children to ask that wonderful question: why is this night different from all the other nights? Jonathan, thank you for being with us.
Thank you, sir.
Last night at dinner before this attack, I was quizzed, is this the end times? Essentially, do we try to wrap everything up and get our affairs in order? And my response was, no, it's not yet. There are too many prophecies still to be fulfilled. One of them comes from the Apostle Paul: all Israel will be saved. The other comes from the book of Ezekiel, where Israel has not been at peace at any point in time in its history. And that's a requirement for that prophecy to be fulfilled. But when you look at these end times prophecies and people saying, this is it, this is, now's the time to head to the mountains or go into your bomb shelter. Here's something that will help you and will really guide you. These are the words of Jesus. It's from Matthew chapter 24. Immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from heaven and the powers of the heavens will be shaken. Then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in heaven. Then all the tribes of the earth will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. Last night, I went to bed thinking this is going to be a horrible war. There's going to be a regional war of unimaginable terror and horror. And this morning, I woke up, and guess what? The sun was up. So that means it's not today. Whenever you see these signs, and the sunrise is a wonderful sign, let's keep preaching the gospel. Let's keep proclaiming the goodness of God. Let's keep loving God with all of our heart, all of our strength, everything that is within us, and make sure you're loving your neighbor. Don't let your love grow cold. As long as you're seeing that sun, you know it's not today.